That was very bad of me. I was aware at one point, and I should have written immediately. One excuse that I didn't make is I was sick like 3 days before the day of our class was supposed to be. So the days before I was sick, and then that day was the first day I went back out, but I completely forgot. So I'm really sorry that you all wasted your time to come here. So again, very, very sorry.
No problem. I think it won't happen.
Yeah, well, and we missed a whole month. You know, I thought it would be easy to reschedule, and it ended up being such a difficult task to try to reschedule. So anyway, here we are. Thank you for your forgiveness.
In the better side is that we are going to have another 1 month to, finish the job. So
well, yeah, I guess that it could be
it's a kind of advantage.
Like the book says, we have to see the bright side of things. That's it. The bright side, we get an extra month. So I'm going to try to turn this onto the screen view. I can't quite remember. I'll share screen. All right. So maybe I'll click that so then we can get started and look at starting right page 56. We're going to be on. And desktop, share screen. All right, so I hope you can all see my desktop now, right?
Right.
Okay. So let's get started. There will be some changes. If you open the files that I put on the share folder, you'll notice that there are some changes from that one in the last few days that I made. So, and please, I want to encourage everybody to make comments or to express if you feel there's a different way to translate. Please don't hesitate to just speak out and slow me down. I hate hearing my voice for too long. So, and I'm sure you all have a lot to contribute to some of these, the more difficult translations. All right, so beyond egoism and dualism, egoism won't make you happy. So I'm looking also at the original here. So a society comprised, okay, so we need passive voice. A society is comprised of two parties, the self and the other. The self is one being that is yourself, and the others are all people except yourself. I think I have a comment for this. Yeah, I mean, this is a good example of one right very early that it was very difficult, I think. I made another suggestion here. There's only one you, while the others include everyone except yourself. I thought maybe that sounds a little smoother and a little more natural English. Let me just try using this instead. Let's look at it this way. So a society is comprised of two parties, the self and other. There is only one you, while the others include everyone except yourself. All right, well, let's try using that. And the key point in building a healthy society is whether the self is trying to keep good terms with others. So I cut the a good terms. Okay, so for example, if you ask 100 people, what kind of people do you dislike? Every single one of them would answer, those who are selfish and egotistic, caring only about themselves. Those who are selfish and probably egotistical. The punctuation for this, this is a little bit complicated punctuation. I mean, usually before a quote we have the comma and then the capital letter for the sentence inside the quote. If we wanted a new sentence here, we would have to rewrite the second part. So this is just a clause, right, inside the sentence. So what kind of people do you dislike? Every single one of them would answer, and then we need another capital to start the quote. Those who are selfish and egotistical, caring only about themselves. And this means that egoists, right, the people, are the least liked people in society. A disliked person, and I was kind of glad that it was translated disliked instead of hated. You know, I think the Japanese had kirai, and I think that's a good word to be careful of because, you know, in English, hate is just it's a very strong word. So, right, I like using dislike here better. So, a disliked person will not attract anyone for support or cooperation, leaving himself never able to accomplish anything. So I just changed the form of the words here a little bit. Even if things go well at first, once his true egoistic nature is revealed, everyone will abandon him eventually. So I just changed leave to abandon. Hey, human beings live in a society where everyone except me is other people. So, yeah, this is kind of a funny idea to try to express. I mean, it's very basic. I know what the writer is trying to say, right? It's kind of obvious. Everyone except me is other people. But I couldn't think of a really better way to express it, so we can leave that. The better we hope to make our lives, the more necessary for us to abandon egoism. Okay, in our daily lives, we consider ourselves and others to have completely separate existences. Obviously, we have our own respective bodies and particular ways of thinking. So this keeps it's like a parallel structure now. We have our respective bodies and we have our particular ways of thinking, which is a little smoother than we have our own respective bodies. And then the original one, the second part of the sentence was like was not parallel to the first, and the ways we think are different. So, right, both the first part and the second part flow from we have. So we have our respective bodies and we have particular ways of thinking. Even intimate family members or two lovers with the deepest understanding of each other are separate human beings. So I changed it to members, right, because we're trying to divide up thinking about the individual people. Now this sentence, boy, I spent a lot of time trying to think about this and I really wasn't sure. And this one in particular, I'd like to hear if others have different idea. Total strangers you have never met have no way to occupy your mind in your daily life. So, I thought, I'm not sure where it came from, the have no way to occupy your mind in your daily life. And even though I consulted my wife about this, I'm not certain I've understood it perfectly. So, but the way my sense of it is we spend our days with people we don't know, believing they have no relationship to us. I don't know if you all have it in the book. Mashite ya mizu shirazu no aka no, what is it? Tanin nara? Jibun wa wataku bukange da to omotte hibi o sugoshite imasu. Any comments? Do you think I caught the sense of it here, or am I missing something compared to no way to occupy your mind is quite hard to understand in English. Comments? Anybody? Anybody at all? Usually Yoshi saves me in these cases. I'm lost. You're lost. It's on page 57, around the middle of page 57. The one that the original that I just read. Anybody know?
I think what you have revised is much more easier for me to understand. However, I'd like to hear from Webayashi-san's points.
Yeah.
So what was your solution? Like,
Well, the new suggestion is just, I have it highlighted here. I guess my translation is very simple. It's just, we spend our days with people we don't know, believing they have no relationship to us. So I've taken the last part of the Japanese sentence, right? And then I moved that to the beginning. We spend our days with people and we don't know, right? People we don't know. Of course, the Japanese had kind of very strong phrase there that we don't know at all. But I just dropped that, believing they have no relationship to us.
yeah, that's just a bit bigger, I think.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So should we just do this?
Yeah.
Alright, and then he goes on, this is one aspect of the truth. Alright. There is, however, another aspect. For example, it seems as if there is no connection between you and me. But it is said, if you trace your family tree back, past your parents and grandparents to the 30th generation, it's being very specific there, so I have to drop the S, to the 30th generation before you, that tree includes more than 1 billion ancestors of yours. I want to drop, it is said, but yeah, in the end, maybe, we can leave that. This means that we all undoubtedly share the same ancestors. In fact, we are all relatives with our family lineages crossing somewhere. Alright, so just a little bit rewording I did there. Alright, moving on, let me give you another example. I wake up in the morning, my wife prepares breakfast for me. The ingredients have been grown by farmers, delivered by transport firms, and purchased and distributed by supermarkets. So, purchased and distributed. Yeah, I think both these actions, the purchasing and the distributing, are by the supermarkets, so that's why I included them both in the beginning of the sentence here. Right, so we avoid using the pronoun. In the original it said purchased by supermarkets and distributed by them. So of course, if we can, I think I've mentioned before, we always want to be more succinct, right? To use fewer words if we're communicating the same thing. So we eliminate the pronoun them by changing this around. This means that I cannot have my breakfast without those people. Okay, I commute to work by train. There are people who constructed the railroads, who operate the trains, and who work the controls. Yeah, that one, the original said who had edited the operation diagrams. Yeah, that one's was a little hard for a reader to imagine what that is, so I tried to write something a little more general there, just work the controls. Without these people, I cannot travel by train. The train is not running only for me. I see other commuters on this crowded train. Without these passengers, railway companies could not run their trains. The passengers I see as total strangers having nothing to do with me are not actually unrelated to me. Okay, this next paragraph, not many changes at all. In this way, there is no single person in the world who is unrelated to you. Everyone is related and connected to each other in some ways. Even the person you had thought to be a total stranger shares the same DNA with you. the person you believe you don't know and are not getting any help from is actually related to you and supporting you somehow. Each human being exists independently as an irreplaceable being carrying all the genes, the DNA inherited from his or her ancestors. Yeah, of course, it's nice to avoid, whenever possible, this is, quite awkward in English, using his or her, but I just thought it kind of humanizes it instead of the ancestors, makes it seem like it's not a human involved, so that's why I felt, even though it's a little awkward using his or her, I think it's better just because it is humans we're talking about. Okay, each of them is at the same time in a deep, humane relationship with each other, living and working together, helping and supporting one another. And by the way, I might have mentioned it before. I think there are English sources that have two ways of thinking about it, but I think in modern times we usually just use one space between sentences. Obviously, this is not a big deal, but I think it's probably better just one space than two, even though I think in past times 2 spaces was more standard.
Yes, I'm old.
Pardon?
I'm old. I'm old.
No, you're not old. You're just, maybe just the style is old, not you. Okay, so to understand this is the key to achieve happiness as a human being living in society that is comprised of the self and others. Yeah, so this is just a little tricky phrasing, but that's right, it's a society that is, again, using the passive, is comprised of self and others. Okay, Nakae Toju, a renowned Confucian philosopher who lived in the early Edo era, was respected as the sage of Omi province. In his series of books, Kagami Gusa, he says, there is no one who does not seek happiness. However, few people can give a precise answer when asked what happiness is. Okay, so for a long quote, right, this is all part of the same quote, you don't close the quotations at the end of the paragraph, right? But you do begin, you show the quotation again at the beginning of the next paragraph. So even though these are very short paragraphs, right, we don't close it, and then we can, though, continue showing that, right, this is a continuation of the quote. Okay, above anything else, everyone wishes to be wealthy. However, even if you are rich, as long as you have worries about other matters, you are not genuinely happy. Secondly, and I think secondly is okay. I still recall in graduate school, though, one time I wrote firstly, like with L-Y, and professor, crossed it out and said that's not an English word. And secondly is a little bit more British English, but I think it's either is fine, right? American English, usually we just say first, second, third, whereas British English usually says firstly, secondly, thirdly, but I'm going to leave it, it's fine. Secondly, you seek higher social status and advancement in the world. However, with the same aforementioned reason, right, a good way to refer back at aforementioned, achieving them is not true happiness. Wealth and social positions are the first matters to be excluded from the conditions required for happiness. In other words, they are hardly the ultimate purposes of life. Yeah, that's good. What matters is your attitude. So this too, I spent some time thinking about. The original said, what matters is the mindset. Just the mindset is not really, I can kind of imagine what it means, but it's not really used in English. And maybe I've often thought the sense of taido in Japanese and attitude in English are a little bit different. I think attitude in English has a little bit broader meaning, and I think it does work here. However, no matter how happy you are, if your child is unhappy, your happiness does not mean anything. Therefore, it is important that you try your best to instill your child with a key to achieve happiness. So I avoided using effort. I think effort is uncountable. In a few places I saw efforts. It might sometimes be used, efforts. I'd have to really look about that, but it seems odd to me to see efforts. Anyways, I think try is just a more natural, common way to express it in English. So it was a nice way to avoid having to decide whether I wanted effort or efforts there. So just try your best, very common English phrase. Okay, the seeds of happiness are within Meitoku Busho. The fields where you plant these seeds and grow happiness are found in the human relationships of your daily lives. You should always interact with people with the mindset of Meitoku Busho. I guess here, now we still have mindset. Of course, it's nice to vary words, to not always use the same word. What matters is your attitude. You should always interact with people. Probably here too. I think I like attitude a little better. Again, it's not that I can't understand mindset, but it's just a much more common, I think, more understandable way to express it. Meitoku Busho. Okay, the key to achieve happiness, as Nakai Toju points out, is Meitoku Busho. Now this, I think I've changed my way of dealing with this. It's a little bit difficult when we have, for example, the romaji for a Japanese phrase, and then the kanji phrase, and sometimes we also like furigana. I think parentheses, the good point about parentheses, it's very clear to an English reader that in the parentheses is another way to say the romaji phrase here. If there's a slash, I think a person could misunderstand to think these are two separate ideas. This combination of ideas, the slash would indicate like a combination of two ideas. Whereas it's not a combination, it's really just, it's another way to say the same thing, right? Say the romaji, and this is what it is in kanji. So that's why I changed it to parentheses, but I think I'm not being really consistent here. It's very difficult for me to figure out sometimes what the best way to do it is. So anyways, in this section, I did it with parentheses. So, Busho, and then kanji, is the nature of Buddha inside human beings, or compassion. And I think we talked about mercy before too. Mercy. I think it's quite a limited word in English. I think in the past it had more broader meaning. Of course, I think about the fact if we're translating something, an idea from hundreds of years ago, then maybe the older word is better, right? Mercy. But I'm a little familiar with Buddhism, and there's a lot of discussion of compassion. Compassion is a very important element in Buddhist teachings, whereas mercy, my sense is more of a Christian, very specific. God has mercy on you. He saves you in that sense. So I changed, I think, all the mercies to compassion. And also with this definition here, I think compassion definitely fits better. Compassion is the mind that accompanies love, grieves, bears hardship, and sheds tears with all sentient beings. Meitoku is the action one should take in understanding the right path for human beings. So, especially when talking about when Japanese ideas are written in English, I think we use path. Of course, way is okay too. We often use way as well. But path is also a nice way to express it, the path for human beings. It is to abandon personal greed and work for the common good, giving your absolute best for others and living a life of service. Yeah, so a life of service is, again, a commonly used phrase, and it is also kind of a Eastern religion idea, a Buddhist idea, that you live for the sake of other people. So, nice phrase to remember and use. Okay, Busou and Meitoku have something in common. They refer to one's behavior and attitude toward others. So I think it's a nice use of a semicolon here. So right, we could put a period here and just make it 2 sentences, which would be fine as well. But the semicolon just shows the close relationship between these 2 sentences. So both would be fine, a period or semicolon, but yeah, it just shows a little bit closer relationship. Not worrying about yourself. So let me just see. Yeah, the original said not caring about yourself. I think in English that would almost always be perceived negatively. That if you say I don't care about myself, it means like you're careless and you don't take care of yourself, which I'm sure is not the sense here. So that's why I changed to not worrying about yourself, and then forgetting your own welfare, which was a more direct translation. That too, it was ignoring your own welfare. Yeah, both of them are a little odd. Ignoring your own welfare, forgetting your own welfare. Of course, but it's to English speakers, it's a little bit of a foreign idea, like forgetting a little bit better. And being united with others as one, here lies the key to happiness. And originally this holds was really fine. I just thought a little bit stronger impact to say here lies the key to happiness. Okay, the next section, true joy of organization, is the joy of collaboration. So I think I need a determiner here. True joy of an organization is in the joy of collaboration. Maybe we don't need it. In true joy of an organization is the joy of collaboration. All right, there is a Buddhist term, right? So we need the adjective instead of Buddhism would be a noun, right? So there's a Buddhist term, Juju Mujin. It means that everything in this world exists in an unlimited relationship with each other. This is an Eastern view of things, and originally it was deeply rooted in Japanese society. Yeah, I don't have the page. I think infinite would probably be better. Yeah, this idea is well expressed in the sentiment. And again, I threw in a comma before the quote. I cannot see it as someone else's matter. As soon as you separate yourself from others, nothing has anything to do with you. Yeah, this is sometimes, right, Japanese often uses like double negatives where it becomes sometimes a little too awkward in English, but I think we can get away with it here. Nothing has anything to do with you, right? If we wanted to avoid the negatives, we would say, everything has something to do with you, but I think the meaning would be a little bit different, so that's why I kept the double negative. Nothing has anything to do with you. When matters lose connection with you, you are breaking off the relationship between you and others. Okay. When anything happens at work or to your neighbor, to say that you have nothing to do with that and refuse to offer help means that you are cutting off the relationship between the person and yourself. I thought maybe there must be a more succinct way to write this, more concise, with fewer words, but I couldn't think of it. When anything happens at work or to your neighbor, to say that you have nothing to do with that, and refuse to help others. Well, it's understandable enough. It's a little bit wordy, but hey, even when someone is standing right next to you, you feel no relationship at all. In turn, that person will not come to help, support, or cooperate with you when you are in trouble or feeling sorrow or suffering. Asking for help only when you are in trouble would make you selfish. Who was someone that's standing next to you? Yeah, I took out the physically standing next to you. It has nothing to do with you. Who was it standing next to you? Yeah, I wanted to make it clear from the original that this is a feeling that people have. I think because especially ultimately, the writer is going to say that this is not the case, right? We feel that the people near us have no relationship to us. So the original was written, someone physically standing next to you has nothing to do with you. So, that's a little strange because ultimately the writer is going to show that that's not the case. So that's why it's just a feeling that the people have. Okay, asking for help only when you're in trouble would make you selfish. Okay. In real society, or more specifically within companies, the problem becomes more serious when workers are only concerned with their own comfort. So, yeah, I like comfort better than conveniences. Convenience is much more limited, what the meaning might be, but comfort is broader. I think it covers everything in these situations. You don't want to help or cooperate with others, but you want others to help you, cooperate with you, or support you. A group of human beings with its members showing such attitudes will fail. So I thought instead of will not work, will fail. The fundamental idea of an organization is to work in mutual cooperation. This is called collaboration. It is true that there are two styles of working. If you choose to work on your own, you will enjoy your liberty. Probably you will enjoy liberty. Liberty even, I'm not sure what the original word was. You will enjoy, of course, it's much more common something, you will enjoy freedom. Yeah, liberty is, again, another case where it's just more limited where we use the word liberty, and I don't, it's kind of more in a political sense, so I like freedom here better. Certainly it's safer to use freedom, it's broader. You'll enjoy freedom. Of course, it's always good, though, to mix, to try not always use the same word as well, but I just think freedom is better here. You do not need to worry about others and will feel free to do what you like. However, you have to do everything alone, unaided. Having no cooperation from others means what you can do is limited. You cannot share your joy or sorrow with others. Okay, that's great. Another style is to work with others. If you choose this style, you are expected to not be selfish. Yeah, the original said you are not allowed to be selfish. But, in English, there's a very strong sense, that's not allowed, like someone, like a parent is really stopping you from acting a certain way. So I've tried to make it in English what I think is maybe like softer. You are not expected to be selfish, because certainly, especially, I think people are still selfish. So if you say you are not allowed to be selfish, in English it's like, it's actually impossible to be selfish because you will stop. But I think in some cases, a person will actually be selfish. So, okay, so if you choose a style, you are expected to not be selfish and have relinquished your freedom because you cannot ignore your comrades. So you have relinquished. Yeah, I just caught the existence of your comrades. There are just some cases where maybe, if we translate it directly in English, it ends up having kind of some extra words. So, we don't need existence there. However, this working style will give you what cannot be gained by working alone, the joy of collaboration. Making effort together, and here is that case, I think maybe it said efforts, did it? Putting efforts together. Certainly this is smoother, more common. Making effort together, again, mainly not countable effort. You might be able to find some cases where it is used, but I think generally not countable. Making effort together, helping and supporting each other to achieve a common goal. The joy of working in an organization lies here. All right? So I took that earlier. I used that. So it's being used here. Lies here. It's a strong way to express it. Right? We could just put is here, but lies here sounds a little bit nicer. And the task that cannot be accomplished alone can be realized in collaboration. Okay, so this is just the preposition that often goes with collaboration, in collaboration, we're working in collaboration. Okay, the same can be said for society. A society is a realized form of human wisdom, an endeavor to join hands, help and support each other to overcome life's challenges. And why change once? Support each other to overcome life's challenges and difficulties. I think I added once, but it's better without, I think. Here lies the meaning of society. You may wish to avoid trouble. You may say that you have no room for others while you are already living on the edge physically and economically. Considering the troublesome nature of modern society and the complicated human relationships in it, I can fully understand these sentiments. However, if you want to experience the joy of life, you have to go beyond this realm. Okay, let's see. The center, the doctrine of the mean, overcoming conflicting ways of thinking. Okay, so I changed the title a bit. There is one more important aspect we cannot avoid when we live in a society: how to overcome oppositions and conflicts. Are you for or against it? Are you going to do it or not? We often see people pressing others for an answer on discussion programs on TV. They want to divide everything into two parties and decide which it falls into to make the oppositions and differences clearly visible. I was a little surprised to read this. I assume the writer is talking about Japanese TV and Japanese society, because I think this is so strong, like in American society. It's probably 10 times worse, but maybe it's a little bit like that too, about emphasizing, right and wrong, the two oppositions. So that's just my own little commentary there. Dividing things into two halves of yes and no and attempting to understand them is called dualism or a dichotomy. when we have very complex things, defining them as black or white often helps us understand them easier. However, with dualism, the areas of neither does not apply, not sure which is better, or both apply are slashed off. This lets the seed of progress slip by because the seed of progress is in the third area. The sides of yes and no are defined based on the issue at hand. Therefore, I think it would probably almost always after therefore, we have a comma. Therefore, you can decide yes or no. If your thinking ends here, you will never again move forward. There is, however, a third way beyond the dichotomy. Both yes and no apply. Or it is neither yes nor no because when this third way is presented, the status quo can be overcome. I guess maybe capital. When this third way is presented, the status quo can be overcome. Just a second. Yes, no. Yeah, so the original said breaking through the current standard. So, yeah, status quo is a nice way to express a very common phrase as opposed to current standard, we don't really say. Dualism becomes valid when the other party is rejected. As soon as you demand the answer of either yes or no, many people are divided into two factions and naturally start opposing each other. So, before today's schooling, we were talking a little about whether this book would be good for Western readers, and yeah, especially this section, I think would be great and very interesting for Western readers. Okay, human beings are destined to ignite a rivalry at the very moment when they are divided into two parties. In other words, dualism has the nature of bringing confrontations and stirring up conflicts. Because it doesn't just take away the seeds of progress, but also brings about confrontations and conflicts, there is nothing good about it. To me, however, modern society seems to be emphasizing dualism more than ever. Okay, good. As we discuss dualism, the idea of dualism between thought and action proposed by René Descartes is well known. For an easier understanding of human beings, he discussed his theory separating body and mind, or physical existence and soul. He wrote Discourse on the Method, with its full name being Discourse on the Method of Rightly Conducting One's Reason and of Seeking Truth in the Sciences. His proposition, cogito ergo sum, meaning I think, therefore I am. So this is a very famous English phrasing. I think, therefore I am is the way that Latin is usually, at least the way I learned it and have usually read it. I think, therefore I am. Symbolizes the beginning of the modern era. However, everything brings about unpleasant effects as time goes by. Descartes' idea was valid in the days when it was introduced, but now it is excessively practiced, resulting in making people suffer. Okay, adopting dualism and dividing people into right and left factions, where they attack the opposite side, brings about nothing production. So factions, I think, is just a nice way of like saying groups, especially I think within faction it's implied like this kind of conflict, like factions are colliding. Often it could be like political factions, the left and the right, or even religious factions, but I think it's a good word here just because it implies the conflict. Where they attack, okay, and brings about nothing productive. There exists the central position that does not belong to the left nor right. Yeah, now this probably could be phrased a little more naturally. There exists the center position. Well, I guess there, like at that place, exists the center position. All right, we'll continue on. I believe the time has come to value the idea of respecting the center position. Okay, in baseball, there is a position called center fielder between left and right fielders. No borderline exists to tell you where left field ends and where right field begins. Okay, I think it's a little smoother there, keeping parallel structure where left field ends and where right field begins. The same can be said for any matter. There are often cases when you cannot clearly claim to be black or white. So, semicolon is good, right? It shows a close relationship. The same can be said for anybody. There are often cases when you cannot clearly claim to be black or white. Right? A person is not black or white. The issue is black or white. So there are often cases when oops, I got all caps there somehow. To an issue. There are often cases when you cannot clearly claim to feel an issue is black or white. How about just, you cannot clearly claim an issue. Yeah, that's better. There are often cases when you cannot clearly claim an issue is black or white. Okay, in the Chinese classics, this is called the doctrine of the mean, which means impartial justice, a way to avoid excess or deficiency. It is at the center of the vertical and horizontal directions, impartial, neutral, and centrally located. Even though it seems difficult, seeking this stance is important. Forming yourself in that stance is the key to overcome unproductive confrontations and open up ground for new values. Yeah, so that's the first translation. Are there any questions or comments about that one? Like I joke to my students sometimes when, my students at university, they're always very silent. So yeah, my joke is, I explain things so perfectly that, nobody has to wonder about anything because of my perfection. That's a joke, of course. All right, well, we can save it. There's still time because we're a little ahead of a little bit faster pace because it's only 10 of 10 and we're halfway finished. But who knows, maybe the second one will take a little bit longer. So if you have questions later, we probably will have time at the end for some. All right, so this is kind of nice that these numbers, as we go from page to page, it does make reference a little bit easier to have those in there. So chapter 3, revival of educating. Revival of educating, how to lead your life. Revival of educating. Yeah, this was a little bit difficult, because usually in English, when we use educate, it's like a school or some kind of formal setting, of course, but the issue here is how to lead your life. How to lead your life. Maybe it's a little bit how to live your life. But I think that is kind of what he means, so let's leave it for now. And then the next page, 68, an era when humanity is questioned. And then we have like 3 titles in a row and another subtitle. Only humanity can be counted in the world. All right, so this one too, I was really thinking about trying to change, and this one too, discussing with my wife about this. I didn't really know this phrase. 世界で物を言うのは人間力、人間力である。I thought maybe the age of human power is dawning. Anybody have some feeling about this? You know, when discussing with my wife, I could understand her explanation for 世界で物を言うのは, but I just didn't really, I have no idea really how to express that in English. Well, I kind of just skipped it, although, you know, the original doesn't really say anything about the age of, but I just thought, yeah, only humanity can be counted in the world. Can be counted. I don't really like this phrase here. Again, though, this really is a hard phrase, I think, to translate. I don't know. Offhand, anybody? Anybody at all have some other idea, or what do you think?
Yeah, actually, I have an idea.
Oh, great.
I'm not so sure if I'm right, but I translate human qualities go beyond national boundaries.
That's good. I think it does get the sense of that original phrase. Whereas mine, I don't think I have any sense of that at all. Human qualities go beyond national boundaries. I like that. I like it
I
better than
agree
mine.
with Yoshi.
Yeah. All right. Good. Thank you. Let's go with that. Human qualities go beyond national boundaries. Great. In my Chinese classics lecture, I have some attendees who are government bureaucrats. Some of them negotiate with foreigners in similar positions, and they say in unison, the game of international negotiations is played not on a business table, but on a dinner table. All right, let's see. Yeah. Okay, and I think maybe this one, just the paragraphs, we move them three spaces in, just to make them a little clearer, distinguished. Of course, this statement is metaphor. What they mean is that a decisive moment comes not from a formal or official session, but during after hours, when negotiators relax a little and show their true colors. So, yeah, I changed off time, which, yeah, I can understand it, I can guess the meaning, but it's not really a phrase that's used in English, but after hours is, I think, commonly used, understood right after working hours. Okay, in international conferences or exchanges, the hosting country will oftentimes invite guests. At such an occasion, the more sophisticated people are, the less likely they are to talk about business. At such an occasion. Yeah, when I first read this, it sounds like it's talking about more sophisticated people who are more sophisticated, but that's not the meaning, right? The more sophisticated people are, the greater sophistication that people have. But I think as we read on, when you get to this part, a reader should understand the sense of the way this is used. So the more sophisticated people are, the less likely they are to talk about business. Japanese culture in particular seems to be a topic of interest. Yeah, I don't really like starting the sentence with especially in this case, especially Japanese culture. I think this is a little bit more properly placed. Japanese culture in particular seems to be a topic of interest. And yeah, just changing target. I think topic is better. delegates from foreign countries will surely ask about the Japanese gods, traditions, and culture. Yeah, I mean, kami is usually translated gods, and just one sense is it's a really big distinction between like a Christian god. There's never an S, of course, right? If it's anything Christian, you will never find an S because the whole essence of Christianity is there is one, and the convention is for the Christian god gets a capital, and when you're talking about gods like kami kind of gods, it gets a lowercase g. Of course, not just for Japanese kami, but there's a lot of Hindu, whatever gods, it's always lowercase. I like it better than spirits. I think spirits...
excuse me, Joe-sensei.
Yes.
I think that you are talking about small g god because I have translated as spirit, but actually that original sentence is seishin.
Okay. Thank you for pointing that out. I was just making an assumption. So, seishin is more usually translated soul, right? Which is...
Oh, I see.
The Japanese spirits. So I guess Japanese spirits. Do any others have like a sense of this?
So what I thought is that delegates or the Japanese bureaucrats are talking about something like a Bushido or Shintoism. So rather, I think that small g god is not correct translation, I'm afraid.
Yeah, as I said, looking at it now, of course, it was quite a while ago that I read it. I was assuming that it was kami. But yeah, if it's seishin, that's kind of a different matter. All right, let's keep spirits, about the Japanese spirits, traditions, and culture. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. They evaluate what kind of person you are from how and what you respond. Okay. Sometimes the foreigner may have a high level of knowledge and may ask a tough series of questions, like about the garden of Ryoanji Temple or a picture of Okyo Maruyama.
Excuse me?
Yeah.
Just a small thing, but Okyo Maruyama, I think the U is not needed.
Well, and why?
It's more common to use. It's a
Yeah. This is something that is very difficult, I think. You're probably right. I think when people want something really pronounced correctly in Japanese, then we add it. Let me give you an example, because like I live in Ogaki, right? But sometimes it's written like this. Well, I think, in English, it doesn't really have any meaning. If someone just looks at it, it's just Ogaki, right? We don't drag out vowels. So usually it's just written like that. It's the same kind of situation, right? I do think aesthetically it looks a little nicer without the U. And since especially a foreign reader who's not familiar with Japanese is going to read it either way, Okyo. In fact, a U might confuse them, like what exactly does this mean? So yeah, it's probably a good point to go without the U. Okay, thank you. Sometimes before, I'm just trying to find the place here, sorry. Yeah, so I think, again, with the translation, instead of one after another, I try to find some word like constant or consistent. Here I like series of, because it's kind of uncommon, like one after another, although it can be used one after another in English, but I like a series of better. And especially starting a paragraph, you don't really want to start it with a pronoun, though sometimes they have a high level of knowledge, and certainly if at all possible, we would rather have a specific noun, right? So the foreigner, because I think he's talking now, right, from a Japanese perspective, so a foreigner, anybody who's not Japanese, I believe that's what he was talking about, may have a high level of knowledge and may ask a tough series of questions, like about these things. Okay. If your response is not adequate, they may scoff at you and question your character, thinking you uneducated. Okay, I think there weren't so many changes, but I just moved this from the bottom up to this. Of course, if we're making a book, I think this is a footnote. This is going to be at the bottom of the page. So in our document, it's a little hard to find where to put it here. But anyways, when it's in the book form, this is just at the bottom of the page. But we can just leave this here now. You cannot stop bracing yourself as their negotiating tactics may change the next day. Okay. Your intellectual level is inferred by not only your response, but also the sophistication of your own questions. So, yeah, I think using inferred, it gets more like that. That's the impression that other people will get. That's how they will evaluate your intellectual letter. They will infer it. They will guess it. They will perceive it. Not only by your response, but the sophistication of your own questions. And own is not really necessary here, but I think it just makes a little bit more emphasis. It's just emphasizing the questions you ask as opposed to the ones you're being asked. So inevitably, you should have deep knowledge about your counterpart's national culture. Okay, hearing this analysis, so I think the original said Hanashi, and it was originally translated story. I don't really like story here. It is a kind of analysis, so I thought, well, let's try hearing this analysis. I realized what globalism should be like. When the Earth gets smaller, we have to deal, negotiate, and work together with people from different cultures in various countries. Yeah, again, another small matter. I've looked on Google several times about, do you capitalize Earth or not? I think, there's very fine distinctions, and a little bit it's just preference. So probably not necessary. I capitalized it here. I mean, certainly when Earth means like soil sense, in that case, of course, it's not capitalized, but planet, I think it's usually, but not always capitalized. We're from different cultures. Okay. It is fun, but at the same time, it is difficult. It means the time when your humanity is questioned has arrived. Yeah, I changed it from when your humanity is counted. It means the time when humanity is questioned. Maybe that's something if anybody has some idea about. Instead of, it means the time when your humanity is counted. The time when humanity is questioned. I kind of changed it quite differently, I'm not sure. That's really the best way Okay, let's see this next section. So that's at the end of page 69. Japanese who attracted people in America with their humanity, which radiated power. Consider the Honorable Yoshitake Kimura, aka Kaishu. He was born in 1830 and passed away in 1902, i.e. the first year of the Tempo era and the 34th year of the Meiji era according to the Japanese calendar.
Excuse me?
Yes.
Again, small things, but 1902 should be 1901, right?
Okay.
I think so.
Yeah. Well, I don't have the original right here, but do you agree, Kunamoto-san?
Right,
You
right.
sound-
It's a
I heard
typo.
it. Yeah, I heard it. So, okay. Okay, thank you. Anything else? Just that?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. Okay. He lived in the last days of the Tokugawa shogunate, which means he lived relatively close to the present time. The Honorable Kimura, and I think it's okay, we can abbreviate after the first time, it's good to write. Of course, nowadays, we don't really use it too much. I think the only time it's really used is a judge, like a court judge, the Honorable. But like I said before, we have to take in consideration that we're writing about a different era here. So, at that time,
Actually, sorry. The reason why I put the honorable here is that Setsu no Kami is actually the title in the Edo period. And the sentence right here writes about that Kimura Setsu no Kami. So that is the reason why that I put the honorable here. Unless otherwise I omitted the honorable in the last part of the sentences.
Okay. And as far as just the convention of writing it, just HON is okay for an abbreviation. The Honorable Kimura became famous when he visited the United States as a deputy ambassador of the Japanese on a mission to America. At that time, American newspapers commented on Kimura as follows. Commented on as follows. Kimura was around 40 years old and had an appearance of gentleness and beneficence at one glance. Another example of not closing the quote but continuing it. The Honorable Kimura has the features of a noble person from head to toe. This is praise of the highest order for a human being. So a little bit idiomatic, something of the highest order is pretty common way to express things, as opposed to the highest grades. It's not really used that way. Kimura had reached 30 years old at that time. He looked older, around 40, which means that he had shown prominent cultivation as a person. I think we want to kind of avoid perfection. There's, just a lot of... Usually if we talk about it in a negative way, because the sense, I think, is nobody is perfect, really, so nobody can really be perfect. So, just going with cultivation, like in the sense of a highly cultivated person. Okay, the newspaper reporter must have had stern judging eyes describing him using the phrase "at one glance." Kimura was not particularly proficient in English. He was highly evaluated not because of any content of what he had said. I think it's better, not because of the content of what he had said, but because of his personality. The journalists must have intensely felt that Kimura radiated high spirit as a human being. Such a perception can be obtained only when one's personal dignity is clearly shown from the inside to the outside, so that it is unmistakable. Okay, the evaluation of a noble person is also noteworthy. There will not be any better compliment of the way a person should be. It is amazing when you think that this is a compliment which he, only 30 years old and in the midst of a foreign culture, had won. Right, so sometimes if you're not sure about how you phrased it, we can see that. If we just take the dependent clause out, the sentence reads very smoothly, right? You think that this is a compliment which he had won. So it reads smoothly, so it's a good construction. Okay, furthermore, this is not the evaluation only for Kimura. We can easily guess that the Japanese mission itself had captured many hearts of the Americans as a crowd had flocked to see the Japanese group day and night. They gathered as if they should see beautiful people, even getting just one glance. Yeah, okay. They gathered as if they should see beautiful people. They gathered as if they should see beautiful people. Maybe they gathered expecting to see beautiful people, even if getting just one glance. Why did the Japanese mission at that time receive such a high compliment in a foreign country, one which is far away from their homeland? Let's have a look at the environment where Honorable Kimura had been raised. Alright, so this one too, let's see, where are we here? I think it's towards the end of page 71. Ningen chikara, or maybe ningen ryoku wa emu yoni, I'm not sure that kanji, wareru no ka. Anybody have somebody? How is the power? I mean, first thing here that comes to mind is, I don't really like using power in English. I'm not sure how to express how the power of humanity is cultivated. Anybody have some ideas about this title? How to cultivate human abilities? Let's just try that. Put it out for a second. Seems like though it's a little bit weak. I mean, I think it works. It certainly is not wrong, but right, abilities compared to chikara is kind of weak. Maybe to cultivate human character. Maybe. What about that? To cultivate human character. But it's more of a question form, so how, I guess it would be something like, how is character we could just skip chikara, just the ways of cultivating a human being, maybe.
My preference is the previous one. How is human character cultivated?
Just that one there?
Uh-huh.
Alright. Yeah. Alright, let's go with that. Yoshitake Kimura was born in Hama Palace, or as it is called nowadays, Hama Detached Palace. The family...
Excuse me, sir?
Yeah.
Actually, I have a question about this thing. Hama Detached Palace?
Yeah.
But it's not very common to call it, right? I mean,
Yeah, no, it's not very common. No.
mm,
Yeah, do you have a alternative?
Hamarikyu. So just don't translate.
Hama
Rikyu.
EQ? Palace or no palace?
No palace. This is just my opinion, though.
No, I know. Well, let's put it out here to see. Hama EQ.
Because it's a name of place, actually.
Yeah. Yeah. This kind of situation is interesting, right? How do we call places? I'm trying to think of another example, maybe a famous place where foreigners go. Like, of course, the question is, how would a foreigner call it? Would Japanese just speaking in English to a foreigner? Would they say hamadikyu? I think that would be maybe unusual. Let me just do. I'm going to do a quick.
My perception is that even though that Hamarikyu is the name of the place, however, that if it is written in Roman letters, it is somewhat difficult to appeal to the foreign people. So preferably, I like to translate it as a Hama detached palace. I do not want too many Roman letters in text.
Yeah, well, I'm in love with Google. I use Google for a lot of things. I know we can't trust it perfectly. All right, I think we have examples I can see right off of both here.
All right, Hamarikyu.
So Hamarikyu Japan Guide. But what I'd like to do too sometimes is watch the number of hits. So let's try Hamarikyu, right? So there. Well, here we have 352,000 references to Hamarikyu. And now let's look at Hama detached palace, and you have 32,000. So you got like 10 times as many references Hamarikyu. This is a very imperfect kind of research, but I do think it's kind of indicative. Of course, to really get a sense, we want to look at the way it's being used. Hamarikyu Gardens, Hamarikyu. Yeah, I mean, it is indicative that I think Hamarikyu might be a little bit better because we have so many more adults here.
You look at the map, right? Map on your right side.
Oh yeah.
And they said Hamarikyu
So
Gardens.
why don't we make it Hamarikyu Gardens?
Yeah, I like it better too, including the gardens in that. Yeah, all right, let's do that. All right, so going back to here, View Gardens. Okay, great. The family of Kimura had been serving as administrators for Hama Palace. So are we going to use the old? Do we want to just because it's old times, right? So probably it's better to use the old phrase, I think, like is here. So I've been serving as administrators for Hama Palace for 3 generations. Hama Palace was a resort villa for shoguns and built at the time of the 5th shogun, Tsunayoshi, 1680 to 1709. Okay, shoguns spent time there to enjoy duck hunting, fishing, and observing the performance of his naval military forces. So, let's just look at that just for a second. I think the original said, observing how his military forces would swim. I wasn't sure I did correct change here.
Actually, that I also wondered, but at that time I don't think that they had the army and the navy.
Yeah, right.
So likely that they had just the forces.
Yeah. I think though, even if they didn't officially, have like 2 branches, a navy and an army, if if they're involved anywhere around water, I think we could legitimately call them naval military anyways. But the question is, I took out the whole swimming part. I thought performance is adequately general and maybe even vague, but I thought it must include many other things that he was observing. So, and of course, performance kind of gives a sense that he was also evaluating their maneuvers, what they were doing. So, I wasn't sure, but I thought maybe it was a little better. Okay. In addition, there were some factories for salt, sugar, and medical products manufactured from herbs grown there. So Hama Palace was somewhat different from other resort villas. Service of the administrator had included not only the reception of shogun visits, but also the management operation of these factories, as well as quality improvement of products in these factories, but also the management operation of these factories. As well, maybe comma, as well as quality improvement of products for these factories. Kimura was born here and spent the first 26 years of his life here. Yeah, just another way of saying instead of spent his life up to 26 years old, I think, a little bit more common way, the first 26 years of his life here. In a castle, it is unusual for a person of Kimura's rank to have gotten close to the shogun, but it was not the case in Hama Palace. It's unusual for a person of his rank to have gotten close to the shogun, but it was not the case. The only thing, like using the negative here, it was not the case. It was unusual because actually, it's not that it didn't happen to him. It did happen to him. The castle was unusual for a person to have gotten close to the shogun, but that was. Well, how about I'm just that was. I'm just trying to phrase it without if you said it's not the case, but in this example, it wasn't his experience. So maybe let's try this to have gotten close to Shogun, but that was his experience in Honda. Unusual for me to have gotten close to Shogun. But that was alright. Kimura was treated kindly by the shogun. Alright, gotta find my place here. Kimura was specially treated by the shogun. Yeah, maybe not impossible. He was treated specially, but again, I think much easier to envision to say. Just use the word kindly. Was treated kindly by the shogun, like a friend during his visit to the palace. Kimura's position was not so high, but he was blessed with opportunities to mingle with esteemed people. Yeah, I'm not sure if I should have added that. I think that's the sense of it. Esteemed people who were the top authorities in those days. That means Kimura must have sufficiently absorbed an atmosphere or a dignity of the people of the ruling class. If, for example, when the shogun performed a no play by himself, Kimura received the great honor to watch the play. since Kimura had attended parties hosted by the shogun, he had the chance to observe various guests. Thus, Kimura's ability to discern a man's character had been gradually polished. Yeah, this too, I wasn't completely certain that I had made a good improvement, but so the original said he had seen various invited guests, thus Kimura's judging ability for personality. I think I'm saying the same thing, in a more common way. Okay, to discern a man's character. In addition, when the shogun had visited villages of Kishu Tokugawa or Owari Tokugawa, branches of the Tokugawa, young Kimura and his father were invited to accompany the shogun. Surely it would have been an excellent opportunity for Kimura to glimpse the lives of top-class people, their buildings, gardens, furniture, decorations, and works of art. Right, so would is nice to use here in this conjectured, imagined situation. Okay, in other words, Kimura had been raised in a circumstance, usually, very commonly said as a plural, had been raised in circumstances where he could be mixed with people and goods of the first class. Again, maybe not passive, he could mix with. Of course, with the passive, it implies he's put into situations. Whereas this just implies, he had the opportunity where he could mix with people and goods of the first class. It helps to develop one's discernment. So, discernment, maybe a little bit difficult word, but ability to evaluate, ability to really tell good from bad, to differentiate a genuine article from a fake one. Okay, according to Kaishu Kimura, and I think this is a book title, An Old Man's Brief Personal History, which Kimura himself wrote later in his life. So that's why I capitalized it, if it is a book. Kimura, at the age of 13, had learned from the head of the Hayashi clan, the 11th generation of the family of Confucian scholars. It means that he had studied the authentic Confucianism that the Tokugawa shogunate had traditionally advocated. Even though it was difficult, I assume that he had mastered it. The learning environment must have been superb. However, without any basic knowledge, it is impossible for a beginner to be taught the authentic Confucianism of the Hayashi clan. Yeah, I wasn't sure why the author is explaining it. It seems to be going into quite detail of something, but of course that's beside the point. We're just translating. In all likelihood, he started at 3 years old, like other aristocratic children, practicing by reading aloud without comprehending the contents of Confucian. Oh, by reading. I would say maybe by reading Confucian texts aloud without comprehending the contents. I think it's better to place that there. With such an educational background, he might have started formal learning at 6 years old. Considering that, I can assume that Kimura had built his spiritual foundation as a man by the way of the 9 Chinese classics, the 5 classics in the 4 books. Sorry, I'm just catching up in my text here. Such an education might have started formally learning it at 6 years old. Okay. Where are we? Alright, Kimuda was blessed. So the original was, Kimuda was blessed with 2 lucky elements. Yeah, I think a little smoother. Kimuda was blessed in 2 ways. First of all, he was blessed with his master. Normally, one could not have expected to be taught directly by the living master of the prestigious Hayashi clan. Yeah, the trouble with the original said by the present master. Of course, present means now, and even though I know, we have to make a leap now at that time, but that's why, yeah, the living master, yeah, the person living at that time. An important point, ancillary to academic subjects. So yeah, a little bit quite low frequency word, ancillary, right, kind of connected to academic subjects, is to learn how an educated person should act. The second blessing was the company he kept. Yeah, so that was a change from, as another element, he was blessed with friends. His company he kept is a little bit broader, so I thought it should be more inclusive, because it gets hard to distinguish like who was a friend or who wasn't a friend, but just company, right, the people he spent time with. His classmates were all selected elites from the shogun's retainers. That, I'm sorry, sometimes a little commentary. I mean, I think this section, like American readers are not going to really like it, because he's describing these positive things about Kimuda, but I think many Americans he was aristocratic. Of course, there's very kind of a negative response against it in American minds, even though in fact Americans are quite enamored with the British royalty. So, but anyways, I'm just interested in, I wonder about what kind of reaction readers will have for this section. But, so his classmates were all selected elites. Words like aristocrats and elites get a very negative response from Americans, from the shogun's retainers. But I mean, I think it is the proper words in this context, because again, we're just translating. So, since they would be supporting the shogunate several years afterwards, inevitably they had a strong sense of mission. You cannot expect a greater influence from them as rivals competing for academic achievement. You cannot expect a greater influence from them. Right? Because they were actually rivals competing for... Is this hypothetical or is this actual? That they were rivals competing for academic achievement. Yeah, because all they're talking about the classmates, right? All the selected elites. It was great influence. Something here a little bit, maybe it could be made clear, but I'm not sure at the moment. All right, continuing. The growth of a person depends on whether you are blessed with good companions and a good teacher. I can say that Kimuda was extremely fortunate, as he most certainly had both. Okay, an educational system is designed to provide these 2 elements, not by accident, but by design. Okay, and then the current educational system in Japan is not regrettably well organized. Therefore, and again, as I said before, I think always would be a comma. Education reform is demanded when various arguments, trials, and errors are repeated. Some education reform models that the Japanese tried to follow are ones instituted by British Prime Minister Thatcher, or those adopted in Western European countries. It is important to seek examples from the West, but it may be informative as well if we pay attention to the facts about how many distinguished individuals were produced at the end of... All right, let's go back again. It is important to seek examples from the West, but it may be informative as well if we pay attention to the facts about how many distinguished individuals were produced at the end of the Tokugawa shogunate. How about if we pay attention to the great number of distinguished individuals that were produced at the end of the Tokugawa shogunate, especially how Japan's educational system influenced these great men. Now, let me go back. This is a very long sentence. It is important to seek examples from the West, but it may be informative as well. If we pay attention to the great number of distinguished individuals that were produced at the end of the Tokugawa shogunate, especially how Japan's educational system influenced these great men. All right, yeah, so if we pay attention to this, and especially we pay attention to how Japan's educational system influenced these great men. All right, so I think that's all right. Let us see what kind of education was offered in the Edo period, which produced a person like Kimura. Okay, so life education in the Edo period. So again, this is, I think, a little bit struggle with using kyoiku in English. It's just usually limited to formal situations, but okay, we can call it life education. I think the original education for way of life, more succinct is better here. In the Edo period, education begins in the womb. Yeah, I think we want to avoid saying fetus. It's a little too kind of anatomical. So yeah, probably just good enough. Education begins in the womb is a very nice, and I think it's a phrase that is used. What were the basics of childcare and education in the Edo period? Okay, so I think childcare is one word, although you might have a difference between British English and American English, but anyways, according to Wazoku Doji-kun, Precepts for Children by Kaibata Ekiken, which is called the Bible of Childcare in the Edo period. I guess if we're doing your title, that one too, capital. It says, a noble man knows the importance of beginnings. Even a difference that is small in the beginning may end up in a big error of 1,000 ri in scale. So it's good, right? We have explaining a ri, a unit of distance on the ground. 1 ri is approximately 4 kilometers. And again, that would go at the end of the page. The beginning is critical for everything. Therefore, a mistake should not be made in the beginning when one starts studying. Even though an initial mistake is small, it develops into a blunder of 1,000 miles when the child grows up. Okay, and this got separated here, but anyways, doesn't matter for our document at this time. Kaibata Ekiken, 1630-1714. I'm not sure we want a semicolon here. We can just kind of make it as one phrase. a Neo-Confucianist philosopher and botanist. I'm not sure. Oh, yeah. So this would be smaller, lowercase. So right, Neo, like a present-day Confucianist philosopher and botanist. Yeah, why a Neo-Confucianist? I'm not sure. I guess I'd have to look back at the original, but usually Neo, right, would mean like in the present age, although maybe even back in the 1630s, he was at that time a new kind of Confucianist. So, right, so Neo is kind of implying a new kind of Confucianist.
Actually, this part is not in the original because I have added just for the explanation for the Kaibara Ikiken. And I checked at Google and I found out that the Kaibara Ikiken was a Neo-Confucianist. So it is not in the original textbook.
Ah, right. Okay. Yeah, that's right. So, anyways, I'm glad you know the Google trick too. So probably people who are more learned about this era than us have decided he was a new kind of Confucianist. So, okay, that's fine. Yeah, in Asian thinking, the life of a person starts at conception. Right. So this is a nice. Right, that's the moment, right, the sperm and egg came together. So in that sense, it's kind of a biological word here, right? Conception, very commonly understood. In the West, you turn 1 year old 1 year after your birth, but in China, you turn 1 year old when you are born for the aforementioned reason. 1 year in the mother's womb is also counted for your age. Therefore, childcare begins when a fetus is in the womb. It is the so-called antenatal training. I had to look up this word too. So yeah, this is not really commonly used, but I think it is the correct word, and also we can kind of figure it out because the antenatal training. So Kaga Mikusa, Precepts for Women, written by Toju Nakae, also reiterates how important antenatal training is.
I'm so sorry, excuse me.
Yeah.
Kagami Gusa should be Kagami Gusa, right?
Kagami Gusa? I
think Weibai-san Arya says Kagami Gusa.
Okay.
And also Toju Nakae. I'm not sure. Weibai-san said Nakae Toju.
Yeah, okay. Good point.
Actually, I found out later that Toju Nakae was already written in the Weibai-san's part, so I can omit this remark of Nakae Toju.
So okay, we don't need it at all. Is that right? Is that what we want to do?
Right, just wait a second.
And then we wouldn't need this.
That part can be erased.
Okay. And then we don't need this.
Nakai Toju should stay. No, not this one. That one.
But the asterisk removed.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, the name order is always, I think it's very difficult to know because it's done both ways, right? It follows sometimes the Japanese family name, like given name.
I wrote Nakai Toju, I think.
Yeah, do we want to keep it that way? Nakai, or did we want to change that?
We have to decide which.
Well, how was it referred to before? Does anyone remember? I mean, we certainly should stay consistent, whichever we did before.
Since that Weibai-san have written as Nakae Toju, so I agree with that Nakae Toju here.
Okay, all right.
How about other words? Other names in other words?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Don't remember, sorry.
Yeah, how about the other ones? Are we being consistent?
I think we should be consistent.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, I think that's maybe at the end when we go over the whole document, the whole book, that would be a time to try to keep it consistent and to catch where we've done things differently.
Okay.
Okay. Antenatal training is achieved by a mother keeping her body and mind healthy during pregnancy. In other words, the mother refrains from mental and physical excesses and spends her days calmly and peacefully. Right, so I just used the noun, excesses, spends her days calmly and peacefully. This is because the fetus's mind and body grows in the mother's womb and is affected during this period. Thus, it is important for the mother to be calm and relaxed. Primarily, the mindset of the antenatal training should be based on compassion and honesty. The mother should never harbor any sort of negativity.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but it's Kagami Gutta. It's written on page 59.
Okay. Oh, with a G. Okay. That's good for that confirmation. All right. So we'll leave the G there. Thank you. Okay, so primarily the mindset. All right, so we're down to the mother should never harbor any sort of negativity. So that I changed. Mother should never ever have any wicked mind. Yes, I mean wicked. I think is it's too extreme, too strong of a word. I mean, I think most people would say nobody should ever have a wicked mind. So that's why I tried to take it down to a level that I think matched sense of what he was writing. So should never harbor or keep any sort of negativity. It further explains that the most important point is how a mother keeps her state of mind. She should live with a heart of compassion and forget and not forget gratitude and service for others. Be honest, honor herself, never tell a lie, and be frank and forthright. It is said that she should not be self-centered or vindictive for even one moment. Okay. Yeah, I changed dehumanize there. Okay. Further guidelines explain: 1, be careful what you eat. Be modest with food. 2, be careful how you move and how you act every day. Be aware of your behavior. 3, avoid stimulating interactions, music, and conversation. Keep your eyes and ears pure of indecency. Okay, 4, it is recommended to read some stories about the life of a hero or sage. Read some stories, so we should have ones, right? Ones which depict their virtue and relationship with parents, siblings, and seniors. Read and listen to portrayals of ancient heroes or sages which describe a historical fact of filial piety, brotherly love, loyalty, and honesty. All right, quite a long phrase, that can't be helped. Okay, the critical point of the antenatal training is to keep the mental state of the mother peaceful and pure and let her positively cultivate aesthetic sentiments abundantly. All right, it's kind of poetic. All right, we're down to last section here. Fickle love spoils infants. A child will grow from birth, receiving love with compassion from its mother and virtuous love from its father. As I explained in chapter 1, compassionate love is a mother providing for her child without expecting anything in return. It is an infinite love, and I think that's to infinite little better, of caring about her child. A virtuous love is a paternal one that he himself shows his child. Maybe it's better that the father himself shows his child how he plays his roles in life and by the logic he lives by. This is my explanation about maternity and paternity, but in reality, their love can be shown by their attitudes as they nurture their child selflessly and wholeheartedly. Okay. So I just thought wholeheartedly, right, we can take with all their might, it's okay, but it's nicer to use one succinct word. Without such parents' love, it is truly difficult to bring up a child. However, the precepts for children gives us a warning. That is, we should not provide our love in a capricious manner. We should not. Alright, so I thought either give or provide. Fickle or capricious action is one that responds emotionally without thinking about any consequence in order to deal with immediate trouble. And here we have an example. When your child starts eating meal, talking or expressing emotions such as joy or anger, and reacting happily when noticing family members, we have to apply our intelligence and wisdom to nurture the child properly. Then he or she will mature as a well-behaved and disciplined child. Therefore, it is better to teach what to do from an early age. If you do not teach at the early stage, your child may see and hear many misdeeds and get used to such improprieties. Once your child gets accustomed to such an environment, it will be difficult to correct his or her wrong habits. Advise against any wrongdoing or self-centered behavior. Do not allow children to tell a lie or be selfish. The reason why a child gets spoiled is that a member of the family, including the father or mother, will easily forgive wrongdoings. The reason why a child gets spoiled is that a member of the family, including father or mother, easily the reason why easily forgives wrongdoings, the reason why a child gets spoiled is that a member of the family easily forgives wrongdoings, flatters, cuddles, and wrongly praises the child. The other thing about this, I think readers will generally only consider that in a positive way. Of course, the writer is trying to show how parents spoil their children. Easily forgive. Yeah, I think maybe not forgive here. It's probably yudusu. Is the original yudusu? Easily.
Hello?
Pardon?
Maybe easily allow wrongdoing.
Yeah. I think that. So allow. Yeah, again, because looking at forgive wrongdoings, I think you have a sense like that's always a good thing. We should forgive, but allowing is the bad part. So yes, easily allow wrongdoing. That's better. Thus, in the end, the child's personality gets spoiled. Right? Very common phrase. So also, when a child cries aloud, members of the family will coax the child to stop crying through deception and pampering. A good word is often used with children. To pamper kind of means to spoil. According to the precepts, this sort of behavior is not true love, but fickle love. And such behavior teaches a lie and a falsehood to children. You think about their future. What do you think? I mean, often, you know, the subject can change sometimes, but of course, if we can keep it consistent, it's better. I think it's fine. If we think about their future, we should not dote on the child. Or yeah, maybe doing it the opposite way is better. If you think about the future, you should not dote on. Probably your child is better because we are talking about parents and their own children. So if you think about their future, you should not dote on your child. There we have it.
Thank you.
Yes.
It's just on time.
Pardon?
Actually, it's almost 11 o'clock, so we are very much keeping the schedule.
Yes, because I've been teaching many years, I don't do it on purpose, but it seems like in my classes too, I just always finish like right when the time is up. So somehow I have this awareness. It does seem to work out that way. Now watch, next time probably I'll end earlier today, but I don't know how to, I'm trying to turn off the screen share. I'll stop share, there we go. All right. Not that you want to see with my hair here. Still blowing because the air conditioner is blowing on me. So I didn't just wake up as it looks. And there we go. Oh, that's better.
ちょうど終わりました。
はい、ですね。ありがとうございます、皆さん。Mr. Jones, thank you very much.
Yes, thank you all for your effort. And yeah, I guess, yep, hello.
Hello. So, yes.
Good day.
Good day. Thanks.
Yep. So see you next month.
Yes. And I will upload this class during today, so you can check. Thank you very much. Yeah.
All right.
Thanks.
Okay. So
Thank you.
See you.
okay, next month. See you online. Live Word Live. Yep. Bye.
Whose dog is it?
Mine.
Who? Goodbye, son?
ごめんなさい。
いえいえ。
そうすいません。犬がずっとおいて。
Can you show me?
見えますか？
もう、チワワだ。
待ってる間大丈夫だってごめんなさい。
いえいえ。前、私のはもっとうるさくて、それで吉祥寺来てるんです。うちのはもう黙ってないから。
それを頑張らすので、おやつをさっきからずっとなんか3日ぐらいなんか一人の人を入れてくれって泣いてしまうので、
あ、そうなんですか。
なんですけど、ずっとしないです。
いえいえ、大丈夫です。
はい。どうもありがとうございました。
それではまた。うちの子に比べるといい子です。そうです。